A new teaser video has dropped for the next Space Engineers update, confirming several things we have been speculating are coming to the game. Along with this video, there was also this post, so we'll be going through everything in this post and in the video. Let's begin. So the beginning of the video and the post reiterate what we've been told before, that Prototech has a set of new blocks coming in the next free update for Space Engineers, and that they are powerful endgame blocks found in new global encounters, which is something we'll come back to later. And it also reiterates that Prototech was created by the new Factorum faction, which was revealed to us in the last teaser, which if you haven't seen, you can watch this video to learn all about it. However, this teaser also adds that Factorum have gone to great lengths to ensure that Prototech's components cannot be reverse engineered. This is demoed during the teaser, where they walk up to a Prototech block with a grinder, and it highlights several of the components in red. The highlighting of components in red was added in the last update for Space Engineers, and it means that when you grind down this block, the highlighted red components are not given back to you. You can see that 3 components are highlighted here: Prototech cooling unit, Prototech machinery, and Prototech frame, and there is an additional Prototech component, the Prototech panel, which is not highlighted. So presumably, you can get Prototech panels when you grind down this block, but the other 3 components are gone if you do. We've seen the Prototech panel and the Prototech machinery before. In the previous teaser, they were shown on the desk here. You can see that the Prototech panel has this gold trim on it, and the Prototech machinery has this neutral face emoji on it. This part of the video also reveals to us that this block that we've seen in previous teasers is a Prototech refinery. So judging by what we know about Prototech, we can assume that this is a more powerful version of the base game refinery. However, interestingly, we can also see the PCU of this block, which is 90, which is the same as the base game refinery. If you don't know, PCU is the limit on how many blocks you can place in the world. So you have a set amount of PCU, both for the player and globally, and you cannot place blocks above that amount. On PC, this isn't much of an issue as you can turn this limit off, but on consoles, it's enforced for performance reasons. However, considering we've been told in previous teasers that Prototech blocks will be more powerful than their base counterparts, and that this Prototech refinery has the same PCU as the base one, this pretty much confirms our previous suspicions that part of the reason for adding these larger, more powerful blocks is to reduce the performance impact of larger grids by reducing the amount of blocks we need to place on them. Oh, and if you're wondering what PCU is short for, it's a Latin phrase, Pressen Subscriben Utten, which roughly translates to, if you're enjoying this video and find it helpful, give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more like it. So, if we can't get Prototech components from grinding down blocks, how do we get the components, and how do we get these new Prototech blocks? These are powerful endgame blocks found in global encounters. During this teaser, we appear to see 1 planetary encounter and 2 space-based encounters, so we can presume this is what the global encounters are referring to. Currently in Space Engineers, while there are encounters in the game, there's not really a reward for engaging with them. Sure, you can get a couple of resources, but I can also mine resources out of the ground. Prototech blocks and components are only available through these new global encounters, which means that these encounters are mandatory to the progression of the game, and I think that is amazing. I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times. Space Engineers' biggest problem is that you can build ships, and that's super cool and all, but there's nothing to do with them. Like sure, you can add all these encounters mods to the game, but there's just no reason to ever do any of these encounters. So, from this teaser, the way Prototech works is that you will find an encounter out in the world. We still don't know how we'll find these encounters. It sounds like from previous teasers that we'll be given coordinates to them or something, but we'll have to wait and see. But you find this encounter, and inside it, whether it be a base or a ship, there may be a Prototech block, or there may be cargo that contain Prototech components. If there is a block, you must remove this block from the base or ship intact, and then, using merge blocks, to attach it to your base or ship. We see 3 examples of encounters in this teaser. The first one is a base regressed into an asteroid, and above the base you can see the wreckage of a red ship. Potentially the owner of this red ship puts out a distress signal or something, and that's how we find the encounter. One thing I want to note before we go forward in the teaser is on the right there is a truss block, and on this truss block there's 1 or 2 blocks that I don't recognise. I don't know if it's just a funny angle, but it kind of looks like they're lights or something, doesn't it? You'll see why I brought this up later in the video though. If we go slightly forward in the teaser, you can see that the door to this base is breached with a player-made missile. However, what I'm more interested in is on the left, there appears to be another new block. It's like a panel, and it has like a gold trim in the inside. From previous teasers, we know that Prototech is denoted by this gold trim on it. You can see it on the Prototech assembler we saw in our last teaser, and on the Prototech refinery, you can see that it has a gold trim here. So these are some sort of Prototech block, potentially the back of one maybe? But there's also one on the edge of the door here, so it's kind of like an armor panel. Maybe this is some sort of Prototech reinforced armor panel? Seems like a weird inclusion, but I can get behind it. Slightly further forward in the teaser, we get a better look of the panels, and they've definitely got this distinct gold plating on it, haven't they? They're too thin to be functional blocks, and considering they're placed around the door, I would assume they are some kind of armour. It's still weird though. It's not what I envisioned as part of the Prototech update, but what do I know? It looks like once they breached the door to this base, this drone here came out of it, so it's likely that these bases will not only be defended by turrets, like the one you can see on the left, but also drones that are hiding inside. But honestly, that's pretty weak defences, considering what's inside this base. But that might be on purpose. The second encounter we see is a planetary-based one. It looks to be some sort of rusty abandoned outpost. It's got a couple more turrets on it than the asteroid base, but that's presumably because this one's a bit more visible. You can see it's got the interior turrets on the bottom and then it has a Gatling turret on top. Remember that weird truss block I mentioned earlier? Well, there's a second new truss block here. This seems to be some sort of truss spotlight or something. This is definitely different from the truss block I showed earlier, so it looks like we'll possibly be getting a few different truss blocks in the update. During this part of the teaser, we can also see a couple of other things in the background. We can see that there's some sort of smokestack over here, with fire coming out of the top of it, presumably from an exhaust. And over here in the distance, there's some sort of square-like sign or building. It's very far away, you can't really make out what it is. Oh, I've just noticed, on the left, there's a sign. Wait, I've seen this before. Hold up, let me just load up the game in the middle of this recording. Okay, so I've loaded up the scrap race scenario, which I haven't played for ages. And I'm pretty sure this is the exact place this structure was placed. On the right you can see the sign, and on the left you can see the smokestack and whatever that building is in the distance. I tell you what, you don't get this kind of journalism from other space engineers YouTubers, do you? The exact place where this video was taken. I'm pretty sure that deserves a like and subscribe, methinks. My assumption is that they placed this here just for a demo. I don't think these structures are going to spawn in a scrap race. I feel like that should be obvious. They just needed somewhere convenient to place it, and lo and behold they have an entire map of abandoned structures for them to use as a backdrop. The final encounter is shown towards the end of the teaser. Once they have successfully retrieved the Prototech refinery and placed it back on their ship, upon exiting their ship, they are attacked. Twin railgun shots. As we can see here, the wreckage of the red ship is behind, so presumably this is in the same location that the asteroid base was, and I'm potentially thinking that because the base was so poorly armed, that once you attempt to breach it and retrieve the Prototech block inside, this triggers a response from Factorum and they send ships to try and stop you. Presumably this will be on a timer, so you have like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes to retrieve the block, but if you don't retrieve it in that time, you have to face an even harder encounter. This fighter on the right seems to have some of those weird gold Prototech armor panels on the side of it, but this ship on the left, the large grid one, doesn't appear to have any new blocks as far as I can tell. That being said, it's far more sophisticated than pretty much all the encounters in the base game, having multiple high-powered weapons, and it has railguns. I have to say, I'm pretty excited if this is the kind of firepower they're going to be bringing. I might have to build something that isn't just my giant swords covered in Gatling guns. Not all of the global encounters will include new Prototech blocks. Both of the teasers tell us that the encounters will also give us access to Prototech components, and whilst we won't be able to build new blocks, we will need these Prototech components to repair any blocks we have. The teaser also mentions that we can get a Prototech assembler, which is able to build Prototech components, aside from the Prototech frame. All of the Prototech blocks require Prototech frames, and because they can't be built, Prototech frames can only be discovered through exploration, which means there will always be an incentive to do the encounters, as you'll be able to get more Prototech frames, and then eventually you'll be able to build your own Prototech blocks. Although I'm going to assume if it uses the progression system, you'll have to find the blocks first before you can build them, which is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. During the Space Engineers developer livestream last week, we were shown this teaser, which contains a new block called the Inset Connector. This appears to be a cosmetic variant of the connector that is a full block in size, and every time I have to use a connector, I'm always thinking, God, this thing looks so ugly. Either you have to have it stick out of your ship, or have a gap around the edge of it. It just doesn't look great. And having a full block version? Yes please. So with this and the truss blocks we've seen, we're also starting to get a look at some of the non-Prototech blocks coming in this update. Let me know what you think these new truss blocks are, and let me know what you think about everything revealed in this teaser. And finally, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more Space Engineers content. And a special thanks to, he's back, Splurgeburger, Clone, The Whiskman, Hamish Drowner, Tarantula Fudge, The Wildcat, and Summit. If you want to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon or as a YouTube member with the links in the description below.